Re:Zero, Side Story, Provisional REM's Paranoia, There Are No Oni Around the World, Chapter 1.
A tinge of blueness could strangely be felt in the air of this morning which had just welcomed dawn. Whether what could be felt was the faint lingering notes of nighttime, or perhaps it's the impression given by the serene atmosphere of the morning coated in tranquility. She doesn't understand the fine details of it. Nevertheless, Rem did not dislike that blue atmosphere which gave off a peaceful impression. In the still early morning of the walled city, Rem, who had just woken up in the town's biggest mansion, folded her beddings with haste and headed to the backyard with cane in hand. For the cooking and cleaning, she has to draw water from a well. Because of the cane she's holding onto, she was practically restrained to one arm. As such, drawing the necessary water was a huge task. Nevertheless, she simply did not wish to whine about a task she had decided to tackle by herself. But then, arriving at the well she had aimed for, Rem peeled her light blue eyes wide open and released a sigh. In the vicinity of the well in the mansion's backyard, she perceived the traces of the well water having been drawn up in a water pail, and the necessary amount having been carried to the cookhouse. Then, the one who had done that in the stead of Rem, who had come here hurriedly, had been the backyard of the mansion that falls into tranquility. Faintly mixed in there was the cries of the trampled grasses, the sound of something sharp cutting through the wind, and the slightly labored breathing of a man. Whence her eyes fell upon what she heard, the source of the sound, and who the offender who had drawn up the water from the well in Rem's stead was had become clear. With the mansion's backyard as training grounds, continuing to swing his beautiful drawn sword, that was a person with red hair with an unkempt beard across his profile and clouded blue pupils. He was a middle-aged man who gave no attention to his own appearance. Those narrowed eyes were filled with negative emotions like they were cursing the world. Even that profile with ragged breath seemed to be adorned by a deep resentment and rage. However, the path drawn by the sword he swung, just that swordsmanship looked beautiful to even untrained eyes. These past few days, Rem had been made to think quite a lot about the meaning of the word beautiful, understanding it, finding it within herself, ever since it was pointed out to her that it would become the key to fill in something missing that Rem desired. "Oh, so you were here?" The red-haired man noticed the presence of the silent Rem, who was pressing her hand tightly against her chest. The man stopped the hand with which he was swinging the sword. He wiped off the sweat flowing from his forehead using the sleeves of his shirt and the creases of his brow furrowed. With that single gesture, an element of displeasure was added to the surprisingly well-proportioned features of this man. Rem thought that, mixing in a hint of ugliness within something well-proportioned, perhaps had something that communicated much more anxiety and bitterness than something repulsive. The man before her made her think that in particular, "It is Heinkel-san, who is early again this morning, it seems. Simple habit. A mediocre person like myself can't slack a single day, or else he'll continue to slack more gradually after that. So it just happens that continuing is a lot more convenient. So then, is that why you're up this early in the morning? That way I don't get any comments from the peanut gallery. At least until you arrived." Huffing in displeasure, the man Heinkel told Rem she was a nuisance through implication. While having been taken aback at the beginning, she had gotten used to that manner of speaking after several days. If she just thought of it as a slightly more tepid version of Abel's cold and dry manner of speaking, it was nothing special. From the start, it was more unnatural that the majority of the people they had met, such as Flop, the people of Shudrak, and Zika, had been favorable towards her. Though it was obvious, just as there were people that were unconditionally kind to Rem, there were also people that unconditionally disliked her. Heinkel was simply the latter. That, and a latter whom she had the reins of tightly held. Heinkel, who was currently coarsely wiping his sweat, for all of his mouthiness and attitude, did not bring up any more trouble than that. That point must be because she also has the position of Priscilla's servant. In the end, no one could directly go against that beautiful woman, with hair red like blood. It likely meant neither Rem, nor Heinkel, were an exception to that, but regardless, Heinkel-san gives me the impression of being a bit of an inconsistent person. What? On the spot, she verbalized what she was thinking, and those sky-blue pupils glared sharply at her. However, sensing that he wouldn't show any aggression other than glaring, Rem shook her head with a, "No, you drink nothing but alcohol all day, and yet you're actually training while calling it a habit." And you even drew water from the well, earlier than I arrive. I told you. I'm just continuing my training because it'll be annoying later. I use the water from the well too to wipe my sweat. It's an eyesore watching you and that brat Bumble trying to draw water too anyway. If so, you could have just shut yourself in your room so you don't have to see us. What I do and where I do it is up to me. Twisting his face in annoyance, Heinkel protested thus to Rem's point. But, something about it could not help sounding like a poor excuse to Rem. Heinkel's true feelings likely were that he considers strangers disagreeable, and would rather avoid others. On the other hand, the fact that he cannot completely isolate himself from those he finds disagreeable is shown through his actions, which is why the impression Rem holds of him had become that he was inconsistent. Huffing with a humph, Heinkel makes noise and sheaths his sword into its scabbard. That movement and handling of the sword, that it by itself looked like something so polished, pushed that impression further. Although he looks at the blade as if it's something detestable, he still handles the sword itself with great care. It appeared to be a state in which you could say love and hate are mixed together. Like you wished, I'll go back to my room. You do whatever you will. Before that, won't you help me with the cooking while you're at it? If handling blades is something you're good at from habit, then I would appreciate it if you could help me by peeling vegetables. Are you HK? Heinkel, who had swiftly turned back around with eyebrows raised having heard Rem's words. It must have been an unexpected request. Of course, Rem herself wasn't being serious. She simply wanted to make Heinkel's surly face collapse for some reason. If he had asked to help suddenly, she would be surprised, and find it difficult. Perhaps Heinkel also noticed that Rem meant nothing more by it than to tease him. Shit. You need to learn some fucking respect for your superiors else. Saying so, Heinkel plucked at his own red hair. As he seemed to draw closer and closer, Rem was about to give a retort when, I am so late. I have done it now. Before that happened, a high-pitched voice resonating through the early morning sky broke into the space between the two. With the pitter-patter of his worked legs, a young boy of short stature rushed into the yard. Bright pink fuzzy hair and, though small, proper butler attire. His big round eyes and his adorable face flustered, his cheeks were flushed and his breath was ragged. The boy, looking at the already drawn water from the well, and at Rem and Heinkel who were facing each other then said, "You are, Heinkel Summer and Rem Summer, you are both up so early today again, it is frustrating. Once again, I was so very late." Tapping his small feet on the ground as he stomps in frustration, was the young boy Schult. Much like Heinkel, the young boy was Priscilla's servant, and as he expressed that earnestness and naivete through his whole body, he switched gears with "But, you have yet to finish preparations for breakfast, correct? In which case, I should actually be able to help. Rem Summer, please do ask anything you will of me." "Thank you very much, Schult-chan, yes. But, I am a man, so I would rather you not add Chan to my name please. Al Summer also calls me that. But, I'm sorry. You were just so cute so." Schult petitions that as he fidgets while twiddling his fingers together, and Rem's lips loosen. Schult's behavior was about as adorable as his appearance. Feeling a sort of fraternity to that youthfulness different from Rui's or Utakata's, Rem also unconsciously felt like bullying him. Whatever the case, I am very glad that Schult-kun will be helping me. That's right, why doesn't Schult-kun tell Heinkel-san? So that he can help us with the morning preparations. Will Heinkel-summer help us? I am so glad. Let us do our best work for the sake of Priscilla Summer. Getting a smile from the hoppity-jumping Schult, Heinkel is lost for words. He then turned his spiteful eyes towards Rem, but it was quite unexpected. While the one who incited this situation was Rem, Heinkel's actions brought the situation upon himself. In the first place, if he wanted to remain consistent with his act of an unpleasant and stubborn adult, he could just trample on Schult's innocent attitude, and boldly turn his back to him. However, so that Priscilla Summer may rejoice, let us do our best. I can't do anything other than peeling. He said such, and dropped his shoulders, thus he was incoherent all the way down.
Chapter 2.
That thing's way of life is so utterly ugly, you would likely sooner learn but to pity from it. Such were Priscilla's words to answer Rem, who had inquired more about Heinkel. Why had she made Heinkel into her servant? Was meant to be a question without much thought behind it. Not even Rem had thought she would get such a scathing answer to it. She had surely thought that Priscilla would tell her about Heinkel's real strengths and his humanity from her point of view, and how she had evaluated those parts. However, her assumptions were off. What's this? You've got a dumbfounded look about you. Were you not the one who requisitioned mine answer? Well, that might be the case, but how should I respond? That you do not understand? Humph, why do you think like so? Since I thought that Priscilla-san didn't like things that weren't beautiful, that she loved things that were beautiful, was something that Priscilla explained to Rem on occasion. That Rem had, in this way, been serving at Priscilla's side, and taking care of her daily needs had also been because Rem wished for Priscilla to correct what she lacked using her sense of beauty. Priscilla had eyes that could discern through the nature of people and objects. Through their short time together, Rem had many times witnessed cases that could make her believe such, and she had come to call things with value, things that excelled, beautiful. That she had kept Heinkel, who she had evaluated as ugly, by her side was something that did not make sense, or rather, it felt like it was not consistent. You point at myself, and note that I am inconsistent? You have quite the overspoken lips, do you not? If I'm wrong, that may be so. But she hadn't said she was wrong. Rem gazed into Priscilla's crimson pupils, and clearly asserted such. Hearing that response from Rem, Priscilla touched her pale cheeks with her graceful finger. Gently tracing the tip of her finger through her cheek, the tip of her finger arrived at her lips. Hair. So you won't show me you're wavering? I have no reason to waver. And why do you believe so? Because I believe that Priscilla-san is not a person who strays from logic, even if she's intense. Rem quietly gave that answer at Priscilla's gaze that seemed to be speculating on her. The moment she heard that, Priscilla exhaled with, a sound of amusement. She sighed in relief once it seemed like her mood had not fouled. Just like she told, Priscilla is a person who does not stray from logic, though she didn't think she wasn't unreasonable. Rem didn't hold the belief that her mood wouldn't foul for some reason unknown to her. Rem, what do you think of a garden filled with only beautiful things? A garden filled with only beautiful things. I shan't say it thrice. Being told that bluntly, Rem's thoughts went into overdrive from Priscilla's words. Following Priscilla's philosophy, would that not be the most ideal of gardens? If there is value in what is beautiful, then you would be surrounded by valuable things in that place. However, if that truly is an ideal place, Priscilla should be able to put together that same thing. While having that privilege, Priscilla holds onto Heinkel, whom she had judged ugly. What is her true motive behind that? Churning her thoughts with utmost effort, in a place filled with just beautiful things, the beautiful becomes commonplace. You see something as beautiful, once you know something that isn't. If that's the case, then in a garden filled with only the beautiful, the value of what is beautiful becomes lower, or such. Voicing her own thoughts, Rem furrows her brow at just how prideful a way of thinking it is. If this logic were to be right, Priscilla is keeping Heinkel in her grasp, to keep him who she had judged ugly as a point of contrast to her beloved beauty. For instance, that could be, as a foil to Schult, the much similar servant which tags along with him. I believe that, to be quite egotistical. Cuckoo, HK.WH. What is so funny? Putting the back of her hand in front of her mouth, a sound escaped Priscilla's throat in response to which Rem's eyes widened. But she lightly shook her head to that questioning. That your thoughts strayed into speculation, such that you would rebuke me, was most amusing. There was also something amusive about your thoughts before that. If you gather only beautiful things, in exchange the value of that beautifulness is lowered. Not bad. However, that is just the grief of those who have no external measure of beautifulness. To those who know the world outside of the garden, that logic wouldn't apply. Is your world something that would shrink to a single garden with just one query like that? She felt like she got cajoled with sophistry, but at the same time there was also a sense of defeat from having been out-argued with logic. What she had realized from Priscilla's words was the difference between the world she saw and hers. It likely meant that which could be called a difference in field of view, was something in orders of magnitude. Not having any memories, or any reliable foundation to stand on was not an excuse. Rem slightly hung her head at that bitterness. Then, besides, while that certainly might be an ugly way of living, the manner in which he handles the sword is beautiful. With the addition of Priscilla's opinion, Rem recalls Heinkel's form from the early morning, that red-haired swordsman with haphazard hygiene who spills all sorts of sarcasm and vulgarities. However, it certainly is as she said, his form as he swings his sword and his posture handling the blade, there was something to marvel at in that. The things that are beautiful from any angle, like mineself, are limited. Do not narrow your view of the world even a little bit. Rem, try to take your cane sometime, I'm always holding onto a cane though, fool. Not a physical cane. A cane to walk far and wide around this world. That imparted knowledge onto Schult, and vigorousness onto Al. So you as well, take your cane. Priscilla's speech was obtuse, and Rem had her hands full following it. But, feeling that she's always telling her important things, she was stuck endeavoring to work her head. Today's cane will likely have Rem pondering over it, much the same as beautifulness did. However, there are points you must see. You may entertain mineself as best you can. So, her lips relaxed, and what she felt from Priscilla's form posed with magnificence, that was beautifulness, because at the same time she understood that what propped that up was the cane she held. I also want that which makes the blood like scarlet princess before her eyes. She who was left at the walled city, Rem had been naturally made aware of what she wanted as well.